listen up, y'all. It's the queen of automation, Megan Donnelly, here to give you inspiration. Founders and business owners gather round. I'ma show you how to build systems that'll astound. Streamline your processes, no need.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Queen of Automation podcast, where we talk about why technology is only good when it works and how I help you make it work. Today, I am talking to Elizabeth Eiss, who, yes, she is another Brand Built member, and of course she is fabulous, but what makes her fabulous? I'm the Queen of Automation. Elizabeth Eiss is the Queen of VAs, and I know that sounds super strange, but when she talks about what she does, you will get it. If you are looking to outsource, right? Like you want to get more time back in your day and you're looking to hire a VA, this is the woman that you talk to. She has perfected this with her own company. And I don't even know what else to say. I'm going to let you jump in. Tell us where you're calling from and then tell us all about your business and what you're working on these days.
Oh, great. That's a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much to Queen of Automation, because I would say, that's probably my second title is automation. And, I may be the Queen of VAs, but really what I am is a scaling expert. And I help people think about how they can scale a business or just scale themselves so they have more free time to do either what they love or with their loved ones, whatever it might be. And it's funny, but I kind of got into the arena of VAs almost by accident. I spent years in corporate America running very large businesses, and so I'd pretty much worn every possible hat. And I joined my first startup and fell in love with entrepreneurship. And I personally was hiring freelancers because, I have a certain set of skills, but I would have a client in a different industry or whatever, and I would hire a freelancer to round me out and to help me do more, actually. And I really discovered I had a knack for finding great freelancers. And so, of course, I had to automate it because really the people I care about most are solopreneurs and small employers. It's 99.9% of the businesses in the United States and, frankly, most economies. I figured if I could help a fraction of them grow their businesses, what a wonderful reward that would be. I would feel good about it. It'd be good for their communities, for their businesses, for themselves, their families. So that's really what I've dedicated myself to doing. But for small businesses, I've really found they need to talk to somebody to better understand their needs, how to outsource, to whom to outsource, what and how, all those questions are. And if most small businesses are talking to technology, if they go to Upwork or one of the other big platforms out there. So that's really what results resourcing is all about, is starting with a human conversation so we can get clear on a business owner's needs. Because if you don't get that right, you never find the right person. So we always start with identifying the work that will really help them achieve their goals. Frankly, that's why we named the company that. My company is called Results Resourcing because we want to resource a business owner's results, not a task list, but results. And that's a mindset that I think is really, really important for us, in servicing our clients, but also for the clients themselves. So I could talk ad nauseum about this subject. I'm quite passionate about it. But ultimately what we do is every business has a back room, no matter how small. And that's much of the back room work is not what generates revenue or delivers value to clients. So if they could outsource that backroom work to someone that's competent, reliable, and nice, that's a win because it frees them up for, more productive work and, frankly, time with their families or whatever else they find fulfilling.
This is the perfect segue into asking you, because everybody has their own opinion about this whole work-life balance stigma, if you will. And for anyone who's listened to my podcast more than 5 minutes or more than one episode, you know that I don't believe necessarily in work-life balance. We all have one life. You can't separate it. You really can't. Even if you work for someone else, you can't separate your work and your life. It's one life, right? Whether you're working on work or you're working on personal or you're it doesn't really matter. And so this whole work-life balance thing to me has always seemed silly. Integration is a better, work-life integration is a better term. But I would love to get your take on this because a lot of what you do, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, because I know when I hired my first person for my team, I was ready to stop doing everything myself. I needed more time. I was feeling very overworked and burnt out and all of that. And that's a common thing. It's not just about hiring for a skill set that maybe you don't have or you're not the best at. It's more about giving yourself more time back to focus on your life, right? And so I would love to hear your take on this, because I've heard you talk about this a little bit before, and I absolutely love your answer. So I can't wait to share it with everybody.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. You have one life. And to me, it's all about the value of your time. And I think it's a really good construct for thinking about what work you should be doing and what work someone else could do for you to free up your time. So to me, it always starts with what's the value of an hour of your time? And no one ever says $10. It's 100 plus for most people. And I think that if people start with that point of view, they're going to think about, is this next hour well invested? And that's an important word in this task. Is it going to provide a return for me, either for my business or to free me up so I could do other things that I enjoy in life, or not? Or is it something I'm spending my time on, which is a cost? And so I think that's a really important distinction. And in all the work we've ever done, and we have a little tool that we call the ROI of time calculator that helps people think about this. But at the end of the day, to run a business, there's all kinds of things that need to be done, but they aren't necessarily the things that your client values or will pay for. But they do expect a well-run business. So you do have to put some money into supporting that business, but that's not work you need to do yourself. And that's really what we focus on, is how they can outsource that important but not client essential work. And so I think, the distinction is a really good one. However you look at time, make sure that you're spending time or investing time in things that grow your business, but also grow you, are fulfilling, and give you time to think about new ideas for your business, or to adopt new business practice, or just understand the world better. Be curious, because I think all those kinds of things help you think differently.
Yeah, I always say, stop trying to build a career and build a lifestyle. That's how I think of the integration or the balance or whatever you want to call it. I call it lifestyle building. Whether you're working for someone else, or you're a solo entrepreneur, or you have a small team, or it doesn't matter. Do work based on the lifestyle you want to build. And so when you start creating goals, make them tangible to something like, I want a deck. I want to go to the Maldives. I want to visit Japan. I want to buy a house on the beach. Like, people think of goals so in the business world, they're so tied to KPIs and metrics and revenue and this and this and this and this, except that none of that really matters. When you think about it, at the end of the day, none of that really matters to any of us. Like, obviously money matters because you need that to eat, you need it to clothe yourself, you need it to live, but it's still just a tool. So you have to think about what you actually want. Like, I want to eat out 5 times a month. I need X amount of dollars to do that. This is the average ticket price for blah, 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 blah for my 6 family, to go out to eat. And now you have an actual hard number that you can then reverse engineer into your hourly rate, or your cost of, cost per goods, or whatever you want to call it. It's funny to me that more people don't think about it that way. They're not looking at it in this tangible form, and they just pull numbers out of the air. And it's even more frustrating when you talk to people about like numbers year over year. And you're like, when you talk about business goals with smaller teams, and you're like, okay, well, what's your business goals for the year? What's your revenue goal for the year? And they give you a number, and you ask them why, like what's driving those goals? Because it's more than last year. Well, that's not really an answer. Like, yes, even it would be better, and I talk about this with Nat all the time, it would be better if they looked at me and said, cost of living has gone up by X percentage, so we need to increase this to... That's an answer. But just because you want to make more isn't really an answer. It's not truly... I mean, it is. It's not a great one. I don't know. So it's just funny to me, because I think your business is fascinating to me in the sense that people don't think about VAs this way, or, hiring assistants this way, or hiring the team members that you need to help run your small business. They don't think of it that way. By outsourcing to someone from like Elizabeth's team, I always say outsource the things that you hate. If you absolutely hate doing something, meaning you loathe doing it, so that you are now going to procrastinate for 2 hours, 4 hours, 3 days, and it's going to take you 10 times longer, call Elizabeth up, get on the phone and say, okay, I absolutely hate doing this. This is something that is essential to my business. Help me. And let her put somebody there to do that thing, because one, they're going to do it faster, because they don't hate doing it, or, they're getting
They
paid to do
love
it, so
doing it.
they're fine with it, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, stop working on all of this stuff that you hate doing. It goes right back to that lifestyle goal. Like, if you hate something so much, it's going to take you so much longer to accomplish it. It's going to take you so much longer to get through it. And for me, when I was ready to hire my first VA and my first assistant, that's kind of where I was at. Like, I hit that wall of, I'm doing everything myself as a small business owner. And I was really good at prioritizing time, in the sense that, like you were saying earlier, I would make those lists. Here's all of the stuff that I'm working on. And you've heard me say this because you've heard me talk about this stuff all the time. Automate, delegate, and eliminate, right? So that's how I look at my lists. I create these giant lists of where all the time is being spent in the business. And then I figure out, what can we automate? What do we really need? Do we actually need the task? Is this task actually moving the business forward? No, then eliminate it, because why are we still working on it? And then the other one is delegate. Anything you can't automate, you delegate to a human, right? So it's really not hard when you break it down to those three things. But I feel like it's very hard for people to do that. What would you say? And I would love to hear how you do this on your side. What do you do? Do you give them like a checklist, or how do you capture a business owner or a small team? Like, how do you capture all the tasks that they're working on daily, weekly, monthly, like to figure out where all their time is getting sucked?
That's a great question. And my instinct is to say we don't. Basically, and the reason I say that is because when things become a list, it can become overwhelming, and sometimes things are interrelated, and doing one thing can handle all the other things. I guess I've boiled it down to two categories. Core work, which is anything that delivers value to a client and generates revenue. And anything else, literally everything else, is non-core work. So that forces people to think about their highest value activity. And then anything else is fair game. And I do agree with you that eliminating, automating, and delegating are the things. I also talk about actually process, tools, then people. Because if you organize what you do in a process, then it's scalable, because you can ask somebody else to do it and they'll do it the same way. Plus, frankly, having standard operating procedures is a business asset. So it adds value to your business.
We love SOPs on this podcast, Elizabeth.
Oh,
I love.
And if you have an SOP, you can automate it. If you don't have an SOP, you can't automate it. And so only after process, then tools, then you delegate to people. Because why give people stuff that automation can do? But the other thing I was going to mention here is that not everyone is particularly tech savvy or comfortable with technology. So telling them to automate is a hard thing to do, because they don't really know how or what tool to use. Mm-hmm. So the reason I said that I don't believe in the list is I really believe in outsourcing to a team. And that's probably the crux of what makes my model so different, is we don't match with individual freelancers anymore. We used to. We've really migrated to a model where we match to a team, because if you have a list, it's probably not prioritized, and maybe one thing's on fire and the other things are a close second, but you got to get the first thing taken care of. So if you hire a freelancer who can do that thing, doesn't mean they can do the next thing well. And my perfect example is a lot of people come to us for bookkeepers. Great, we take care of bookkeeping. That's resolved. Now they need somebody to do graphic design or SEO. That is not the bookkeeper. And then they're back to this non-productive activity of looking for people. And so really the solution is teams, because you have a team owner that really is the project manager, the quarterback for the work that a client needs, but it's one-stop shopping. That person's passing off to one player or the other and managing the bookkeeper and the graphic designer, whatever it might be. So you start with what's the most important of your list. Don't have to worry about everything you need, because you know the team's going to be able to do it all when it becomes a priority. So to me, it's what are the couple of things that are stopping you from moving your business forward and that you hate to do, and start there. And then that's the first match. But if the team's comprehensive enough, which our teams are very comprehensive, they're going to be able to grow with the business as the business owner sheds unproductive work and starts to think bigger about their business and becomes the CEO of their business rather than the key worker of their business.
Exactly. And the reason I asked you that question is because I've heard you tell this story before, and I love it. So I don't use lists. I actually, of course I do, right? I have a software for that. Of course I do.
Too.
Right?
I do too.
I always have a tool for that, right? Like I have a tool for everything. So I use a tool called Rescue Time, and it sits on my computer and my phone and everything that's all the devices that are connected. Because what I've also found is even if you do a list or even if you do the one or two things, people always come back with, oh yeah, and I also do this. Oh, and then there's this, and and there's also that. And so you can't rely on people's brains to remember all the crap that they're working on because they have they don't know. They don't remember. And so what Rescue Time does is it super creepy, and it tracks everything that you do, everything. And so I used to be obsessed with this tool in the beginning because it tracks everything down to the second, right? So you're seeing, and it's really scary when you first look at it. It's incredibly scary to see where you are wasting time.
I can imagine.
And that's what it's really scary because, social media, email, like all this stuff there's these spikes, and it gives you graphs, and then it builds the list for you, and it tells you like how much time you spent on Facebook, how much time you spent on LinkedIn, how much time you spent on this, how much time you had Google open. And it even goes in between all the tabs. So it's insane. I look at it a lot less now because I've figured out how to, but for a while there, I would look at it every week and I would just cringe because I'm like, oh my gosh. And so data's great, right? I love data. I'm a huge data nerd. So then when I first started doing this, then I was kind of going down the road that you were just saying. So now I have to figure out I have all this fantastic data and I'm obviously wasting all of this time, here in social media and email and all of these things that don't need my attention. Okay, so how do I turn this data into a tangible thing, right? And that was the hard part. That was the part of, okay, I don't need to do social media. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. And that was the first step for me saying, I'm going to hire somebody to do this, this, and this, because I can't believe the amount of time I was spending. Because what happens? Like, we're all obsessed with LinkedIn in the brand build community, right?
Yep.
What happens when you go on LinkedIn, Elizabeth? You find a few things, then you go down the rabbit hole of reading content and commenting and doing all of this. So it's so funny because when people talk about ghostwriters and they talk about VAs and they talk about all this stuff, using them for LinkedIn, and I'm like, I totally understand why. Because if you are using that type of platform or any of the social platforms to really grow your business effectively and create those networking relationships and working relationships, you're on there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And it is a time suck.
Yeah.
Like it sucks so much of your time away.
I think about, finding resources that can alleviate some of that work. Because, obviously, if you want to be genuine, you want to be authentic, you do need to be on there making comments. But it's like maybe there's somebody that helps you use Sales Navigator to zero in on the people you should focus on, or to help you write a post, or create a series of articles or things around certain themes that are unique to you. I mean, there's so many things people can do to get help, even to get it to 80%, then they can finish the last 20%. I just think that's a good role. That's finding good use of your time. And you're also leveraging people that might be better at Sales Navigator. So what might take you a couple of hours might take someone that's really good at it, an hour to do. So, really getting the right people behind you that are skilled in the areas that, you're focused on is a good idea.
And accepting the fact that, like, let's be real with and I use LinkedIn as the example, but even like Facebook or Instagram, when you're doing it right and you're sending messages out to people, you're copying and pasting those messages. If you're doing it the right way and you're sending out hundreds a day, you're not, come on, like, let's be real. You're not sitting there and for 100, I mean, maybe you are if you're spending 14 hours a day on these channels and you're customizing each individual message as you're sending it out. And I know that there are people out there that do that, but you can have somebody copy and paste the first message in. Now, obviously, I do not recommend that you have that person then continue. You should, at some point, you physically, if you're growing your personal brand, have to physically jump in and have a conversation with somebody. But the first message, that you're sending pretty much the same kind of cookie cutter message out to everybody, you can have somebody do that. Like Elizabeth said, they can send out all those DMs. They can go and do the searches on LinkedIn Navigator, or even just regular LinkedIn if you don't use LinkedIn Navigator, or whatever channel you're on. SEO searching on YouTube if you're trying to grow your YouTube channel. I mean, are people who are really great at research, and that was actually one of the reasons that I did bring somebody on, because I would get stuck going down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I realized that the research part of what I'm doing and finding people that we want to talk to, that part doesn't necessarily need to be me, as long as they're providing me a list of people.
Yeah, you set the parameters, and then they go fulfill those parameters.
Well, and that's also, again, goes back to what you were saying. This is where SOPs come into play, people. I, am very much of the mindset that all small business owners should do the thing the first time. You as a small business owner, if you have a team of 5 or less, or you're a solo entrepreneur and you're growing these businesses, you should do it first yourself. Even, it doesn't have to be for a very long period of time, but just so you have a good grasp on it. Then you create the SOP.
It's the only way you find out where the flaws are, the breakdowns, because only you really know that what you're trying to accomplish. You're not just following the process. You're kind of building it as you go. So I think that I totally agree with you.
And what's really great about it is, if you do that, when you do bring someone on, I will find myself, because my team asks me questions, Andrea asks me questions, but I can pretty much instantly answer her. There's very few things that she's going to ask me that I haven't already done myself. I never give my team something that I haven't done myself first. And so then when they ask the questions, even after using SOPs or something, I have an answer right away, right? Like, do this, do this, do this. And it also, because you know what? Shit breaks. It just does. It's going to break. No matter, like, processes, systems, all this stuff breaks. It makes troubleshooting so much easier if you have a process in place. Because you'll know where in the process the stuff broke. And you'll know where you have to go to figure out, okay, let's go look here. Why did this break?
Well,
obviously, GPT,
the SOPs, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to.
Oh, that's okay. Please go.
I was going to say, with SOPs, a lot of people say, I'm not process oriented. But there's freelancers that love to write process. They'll interview you, get process out of your head and onto a piece of digital paper. And there's a freelancer for pretty much anything you don't want to have to do. It's just finding them.
You can use ChatGPT for that
That's
now.
true, yes. Yeah.
I'm not talking about typing either. One of the most underutilized parts of GPT, or whatever AI tool you're using, your phone. Hit the voice note and say your process, say what you're working on, tell them how you're doing it, and have them create it. Yeah. I mean, there's so many ways to do that. Now, obviously, you're still going to need a human. At the end of the day, even if you're using an AI business, you should still have a human involved, because the human, garbage in, garbage out, right? Like, you still need a human to be checking all of these things. But I mean, you can use AI to help with some of that stuff. And then you have a human running the AI. Now, I mean, that's a
really good point. And it's like I mentioned before, that not everyone's particularly technical, but one of the really powerful things about high quality virtual assistants is they're extremely technical. They know how to use all the different CRMs, all the different tools. They know how to use AI. They use AI in their own businesses for themselves, and that they can teach a business owner how to do the stuff that they need to know how to do, and they can do the rest of the stuff using those tools, which makes them more efficient. So I think that's, you mentioned social media and things like that before, or LinkedIn. These platforms change all the time. Their algorithms change. It's impossible, I shouldn't say impossible, but highly unlikely that any individual business owner is going to be the master of all those things. So you might as well find people that specialize in those different platforms. And again, that's one of the reasons I like the teams. Absolutely. Because you can have a blend of people that have skills in different platforms. At the end of the day, the output's probably going to be better because they have more expertise using these tools.
Yes. And it's so funny because, everyone knows me as the queen of automation, right? And we're talking about all this stuff, but you know what? I'm the first person to jump up and down and say, stop working on stuff you hate. It's going to take you longer. Or if you don't know how to do something, ask, don't just try to figure it out, and it's great when people want to do that. They want to go and just figure stuff out. But how much time is that going to take? It's, what, if that's who you are and you're one of those people that needs to be educated and you need to do it yourself first and you need to learn it yourself, that's fine. But you have to accept the fact that that's going to take you X amount of hours, right? Instead of, like you said, bringing on a specialist, having them set it up, having them teach you, create the process, or teach you and then create the process. And then you go back through and try the process and you're still learning, but now you're learning from somebody who is an expert and somebody who can fast track it. So it's not that you're not learning, fast track your education, people, and don't feel bad about it. Like, it's okay. It is okay to do that. In fact, I encourage it. Why would you want to waste months when you can do it in a week? That's what I don't get.
When you think about it, every one of these tools we use, those are companies trying to improve their market position all the time, improve their products. So, you're up against this mountain of constantly dynamically changing things that you're using for your business. And you just can't keep up with it all. And so I think that what got you, this is a trite phrase, but what got you here isn't going to get you there. So I think a lot of solopreneurs in particular had a great idea. They were very resourceful. It's DIY. It gets them to a certain point. But at a certain point, if they don't change and adopt new habits or find ways to scale themselves, they're never going to move that business forward, move that idea forward, help all the people they want to help. And so they really need to look for people that are in alignment with whatever their business is all about, so they can get the help they need and start to outsource and scale whatever it is they're doing.
Absolutely. This is how the coaching industry has taken off. Because solo entrepreneurs figured out a thing that they were really good at, and they did that thing and they grew it and they grew it and they grew it and they made a bunch of money, and then they plateaued.
Yeah.
They hit that spot. Now what? And they moved into coaching, and now they're teaching other people how to do the same thing and grow the same thing and do the same. So this is that coaching world that's taken over in the last 5 years. I mean, it's just been insane, amazing. Right? But that's exactly what happened, right? Like, these people figured out how to do something really, really well, and they were really, really good at it. And you get to a point where being really good at one thing is fine until it's not, because you kind of hit a peak, and it's just the way it is. You think about like stores like Amazon and Facebook and all of the big guys, right? There's a reason that they pivot, and there's a reason they add new things. There's a reason that Amazon started out as a book company, and then they have 2-day shipping, and now they have Amazon video, and they have this and they have that. There's a reason for all of that, because
Amazon everything.
Somewhere, back here, looking at all the operations, they're also looking at the numbers. There's a reason these guys are good at what they do, because they pivot. The best part about it is they don't pivot in a reactionary way.
Right.
Like, they're not reacting. They're ahead of it. They are 2 years, 3 years, sometimes, well, I mean, not always that much. I feel like COVID kind of changed that game, but most of the time, the companies that are ahead of it, they know their numbers and they're forecasting and they understand what's happening and what's going to happen. They pivot beforehand.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They add new products, they add new services, they add new things, and they scale up and down based on their teams, based on XYZ. It's very cool to go back through history and look at some of those really big companies, like the Microsofts of the world. And like, when you go back, Microsoft's not a great one to look at, because they do some funky things. But when you go back and look at these really big companies and you look at like the history of how things have like progressed, and especially if they're publicly traded, because you have access to all their numbers and all their data, so you can actually see it. I highly encourage all of you to go pick one of those companies that's publicly traded and go out and look at the numbers and you'll see peaks and valleys. I mean, they're probably not as, we feel it more as a small business owner. Like we feel it more than they do. They don't feel it as much, but you'll see the same peaks and valleys right before new products launch, right before new services launch, right before something pivots and changes, right before a new thing is added. You know, you can see them, you can see the trends, and it's very cool. And it also makes it humanizing, I guess, right? Because we're small business owners and we feel the trends and we can feel the pivots and we can feel the ups and downs, but they're doing it too. And trust me, they feel it. They just don't talk about it as much.
Well, you know, you raise another interesting point about the ups and downs. And that's actually a kind of an advantage that a small business has, because particularly through contract staffing, you know, you don't have to assume an employment burden. You know, if you're not sure where the market's going, or you just need certain skills for a limited period of time, you can scale up or down by hiring skilled contractors. And I'll never forget, in the early days of me being in this business, I really had my eyes open because there was a client was looking for, you know, a strong digital marketing person, I'll just say. And I went out to look for candidates for them. And there was a woman that used to do work for Amex, those kind of brands. She wanted to live in Idaho and ski and stuff like that with her family. She moved to Idaho. She left the big job working in Idaho. This small business is working with this woman that used to do digital marketing for Amex. I mean, that person never could have hired, you know, that person as an employee, but has access to that kind of skill level because now they're contracting. So it's, you know, when I first started getting this business, people that were freelancers were viewed as people that couldn't get real jobs. This was like 15 years ago. Today, you know, there's contractors for everything. I mean, it's really become, you mentioned lifestyle before. I mean, it's really become a lifestyle.
That was exactly me, because people, you know, and that stigma carries you, right? You know, I spent years in corporate America, and at the end I hated it. But it was great. Like, it was amazing in the beginning because I can't trade that opportunity and that experience for anything, right? You just can't trade it. I'm sorry. How else are you going to get experience working with a $4 million when you don't get to work with a $4 million budget for a $1 billion corporation, right? Like that experience there's no way I'm ever going to repeat that, right? Unless I go work for another one, which no, thank you. But when you start out, like, then you start out contracting or freelancing, whatever you want to call it. And people are like, is it because you were laid off? No, I left. Like, I left.
My choice.
Why does that matter? It doesn't change my skill set. It doesn't change. And it's just funny and so people are flabbergasted that I don't want to go back and work, because probably it's very similar to you. People are flabbergasted that I don't want to go back and work for a big company like that. Look at the salary and the benefit and all the stuff that you get. And I was like, I'm good. I'm good right here. Good right here in my home, seeing my kids every day, being able to go pick them up from school, drop them off, do whatever I have to do on a regular basis, pick and choose my hours. Yeah. Like, as long as
it's
I
in
get
your
my
hands
shit done,
as opposed to somebody else's hands, that ultimately, you know, either the market or you just can't affect that. You know, as hard as one might work in corporate America, it does not mean circumstances aren't going to change.
And that's not a silver bullet either. Like, people assume that because they have a job in a corporation that they are safe. There's no guarantee in any corporation ever. What if they get bought out and they sell everything up for money? You know, I mean, there's never a guarantee. Yeah. So starting your own thing is actually more of a guarantee, because how hard you work, again, we talked about this earlier, money is a tool. How hard you work depends on that will guarantee you money or not money, or, you know, I mean, sometimes, but, you know, I mean, it's all based on your actual physical effort and not the company that you're working for. I don't know. This has been an amazing conversation. I want you to tell everybody where they can find you. I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I feel like we could go on and on and on about all of this. Tell everybody where they can find you. We will, of course, drop your information in the show notes. And I want everybody to go out and check out Elizabeth's content on LinkedIn, because it's awesome. She is a fantastic storyteller, and she has years of experience and stories to tell from all sorts of different niches, if you will, or different, you know, different channels, different types of businesses, because she's been doing this with VAs for quite a while, and she's done very well for herself.
Well, thank you for your kind words. And I think if I ask anybody to remember anything, it's to remember that our company is called Results Resourcing, ING, because we resource results. Yeah, I'm looking to match you with people that can deliver results to you. And I'll also share with the Queen of Automation our ROI of Time tool, which is a free tool that will help you take a look at how you're investing or spending your time. And it's the first step to thinking about, am I doing core work or non-core work? And what work might I outsource? And it's a little tool you can use. It takes literally 4 minutes to do. So it doesn't have to be a big
Ooh, that would
chore
be
to have
amazing.
insight. Yeah, it's fun.
Oh, well, thank you. We will make sure we drop all of that in the show notes. We'll drop a direct link to your LinkedIn and your website and all of that stuff.
Thank you.
And yeah, that's all I have for today, everybody. And remember, technology's only good when it works. We will see you all next week. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. This is wonderful.